I'm going to be recording this just in case anyone else wants to listen. I just started recording.
Hi, Mom.
And that concludes the fifth reason why DRAK will never have.
Okay, I'll go ahead and get started. So, hello everybody. Just wanted to spend some time going over and answering a bunch of questions about garrisons and about the quickest way you can level and get gear. Most of the professions and crafted items that you can get are gated behind daily cooldowns. So the best way to figure out how to build your garrison is having a plan for which gear you're going to get, matching it up to your profession, and getting started on that as soon as you can. So the first thing I'm going to teach you about is work orders. Work orders are in every garrison building for the most part. A work order is when you trade in certain materials to have the building create a new material for you. The easiest example is making ore turn into metal ingots. Like, you don't do any smelting anymore as a miner. You will then trade that ore into ingots. So that is on a 3-hour cooldown to be able to do that. But you can queue up several at a time. That would prevent you from having to log back in every 3 hours to put another order in. And the amount that you can queue up at a time is based upon your garrison level and if you happen to have a storehouse as well. So initially you could have like I think 8 to 10 going at a time from a level 1. I think some of them you can have up to like 12 or 13. So obviously if it's just, let's just say 10 for, that's 30 hours basically that you can have your garrison pumping out materials before it stops and you need to refill it, if you will.
Did that change recently, DRAK? The 3-hour thing? I thought it was 4.
Is it 4?
Yeah, man. I think it's 4.
Okay, I'll verify that with beta. I'll log in a second. But yeah, 3, 4, whatnot. The bottom line is you are limited to how many resources you can get by this cooldown system. It doesn't matter how much you go out and do all the gathering. Like you could go out there and mine 50,000 nodes if you want. It's not going to speed up the process of turning them into ingots because that is gated behind your own daily cooldown with your profession and also the garrison. So as I mentioned, you get a daily cooldown for your profession too. I'm going to use blacksmithing as an example, okay? Blacksmithing, when you first learn the new brutal smithing, I don't know what the fucking name is. When you first get the whole thing to unlock your smithing to put it up to 700, you also learn the recipe for the for your daily cooldown. So for blacksmithing, it's the true iron bar, okay, and that requires 5 true iron ore to make. It's on a daily cooldown, so when you pop it, you use it, and you don't get to use it again until after the reset. Now, when you get to higher profession points, you can use that a few other times a day, and that might be a bug. We don't know that for sure. But the cooldown, but I think some people are reporting that when you get to 700, you can do it 3 times a day instead of just 1. But the point I'm trying to make is that you cannot just spam gather and then get gear quicker. The gear is gated, and so all you can ensure that you do is making sure that you are always doing your actual daily cooldown for your profession to get those mats, and to also get your garrisons always working. Now, obviously, go ahead.
As far as choosing professions, are your professions automatically chosen in your garrison based on the 2 that you're running?
No.
And the other question is that if, say, I've already got inscription and jewel crafting on Messiah, do I use jewel crafting and inscription in my garrison, or should I choose two totally different ones?
I will get to that, but generally you will want to match up the buildings with what you have if you're looking to make the best gear. If you want to be able to make other things, or you're using your garrisons to potentially make money only, then you shouldn't really worry about it. But here's the way it is right now, okay? Every profession, for the most part, has some kind of gear that it can make. Like blacksmithing, it has 8 different pieces of armor, like plate armor. Leatherworking does leather and mail. Clothwork or tailoring has cloth, and then engineering has a gun and a helmet. Tailoring also has cloaks, which I'll get to that later, but the cloaks are not part of your 3-item limit, by the way. Jewel crafting has necks and rings, but remember that one of the rings you're going to get is the legendary ring, which is better than you can craft, so you're really only going to have 2 items available for jewel crafting. Inscription has staves, I think. There are no more profession bonuses, okay? Those are completely gone. The only purpose of the professions is to make money and also to craft your own specific gear. Now, the initial gear that you craft is all BOE. Everything that you craft at epic level, or weapons start at 630, armor starts at 640, okay? That is all BOE, so you could buy one off the auction house. Now, what is not known yet is how they're planning to do the upgrade system. As it stands right now, the crafting of the 640 is a relatively simple recipe to learn, and it takes a good amount of mats, like probably 8 to 10 days worth of mats, if you're using your garrisons constantly. But the upgrade system, you use a similar amount of mats, roughly the same, and you can then upgrade the item from 640 to 655, and then again to 665. So it's unknown how long exactly it's going to take for you to first create an item, then upgrade it once, and then upgrade it again in terms of how many resources it's going to take. But the best thing you can do is to get those work orders cranked out as early as possible. Always have work orders in queue. If your garrison is idle and it's not doing work orders, then you're not maximizing. And that doesn't mean you have to sit in front of the computer all day, because, like I said, it can queue up to 12 in the beginning, and you can go as high as 30 work orders almost once you get a storehouse, if you even care to do that. But as long as you got like 12 work orders going, that's, anywhere between 36 and 48 hours of you don't even have to worry about it before you fill it up again. So it's not something you have to sit in front of your computer and do. Just load up the shit before you go to sleep, so that you're still producing resources while you sleep or work. But as far as the upgrade stuff go, right now, I don't know if the upgrade items are BOP or not. Okay, so if they're not BOP, theoretically, you don't even need to have a profession if you're rich. Theoretically, you could just buy anything off the auction house. All the items to upgrade to 655, 665. Now remember, they're going to take a while to make. Kind of like when the Sky Golem first came out. Like, you didn't see them pop up on the auction house for like 28 or 29 days or whatever. That's because, again, everything's gated. So you're not going to see this shit available by some crazy entrepreneurs with several gatherers, alright? You're going to see them all start popping up around the same time if people are going to sell. But until we know for sure if those upgrade items are BOP, you should just automatically assume that they're not. That means if you want to be able to craft 665 gear, you need to match up your profession with the type of armor that you wear or whatever you want to do, and you need to make at least one of your buildings that profession. You get 3 small buildings. So, for example, for my blacksmith, I am a blacksmith. I'm planning to make 3 plate pieces of gear. Okay, I will build a blacksmith. That way, I can constantly crank out the true iron ingots through the blacksmith building, as well as through my profession. That will give me the maximum amount of yield to get me the most resources possible to get me the gear as quick as possible. If it turns out that the shit is not purchasable on the auction house, then that will theoretically be the only way that I could get my 3 upgraded crafted pieces. Is there anybody that has questions so far? I know it's a lot to take on.
I think that's an important, like you said it and Baden said it. So you can only have 3. So there's no reason to double craft.
Right. Like, I would recommend, honestly, just from what I've seen, to make one of your main crafts either blacksmithing, leatherworking, or tailoring. and that depends on what you are. If you wear mail or leather, you may as well make a leather worker. If you wear plate, make a blacksmith. If you wear cloth, make a tailor.
So, in other words, drop inscription and pick up blacksmithing and level it up before the expansion hits.
Well,
I don't know about
inscription.
that.
Well, I don't know. Like, inscription only makes staves that I'm aware of. I don't believe there is any other items that they can craft. But there are
cards.
Okay, well, those cards are going to be very situational. Every one of those cards has crit strike on it. So, for example, the tank one, not so great. If you're a build that uses heavy crit, it might be good. But they'll be upgraded in the same way, and again, you got to wait for the Dark Moon Fair, so that might be another factor to consider. The whole point of all of this is to try and maximize what you do with your time before we start raiding. The maximum amount of gear that you can obtain through all of your efforts is 665. Okay, you cannot get anything higher than 665 from crafting at the moment. So that is the equivalent of heroic gear, I believe.
Yeah.
In the first instance, so you guys might be getting
Heroic is normal gear, right?
Well, let's just go ahead and start thinking warlords. Go ahead and take off your mic. Let's start thinking warlords now, okay? Obviously, yes, the heroic difficulty is the equivalent of normal difficulty now, but to make it not confusing, let's just start thinking warlords. So yes, heroic level gear. That is the 10 to 30 man, just like normal. But that is the equivalent of the gear you'll be getting. So that could be a pretty significant boost, considering, if you get the 3 pieces that are the highest stats, like chest and head and legs, etc., then they could be a pretty significant boost. So, if I were you, I would do some heavy research into Warlord's professions in terms of what each thing can make. Classes like engineering, I don't really know how useful it's going to be, especially since the one piece of armor engineering, they can make guns, but they're 10 item levels lower than other things you can craft. The one item they can make, which is a really nice helmet, you're going to get an LFR helmet for free out of Molten Core when you run LFR Molten Core, so it's engineering I can't see as being super useful. As for what I'm doing, I'm probably going to do tailoring and blacksmithing. Yes, tailoring, and the reason is because, as I said before, the cloak does not count towards your 3 crafted items, so in theory, I could be wearing 4 crafted items. And if I make 3 plate pieces, like chest, legs, and shoulders, and then get my LFR Molten Core helmet, and then wear my crafted cloak with my legendary ring, those are all item levels that are going to be way higher than just spamming dungeons. That's in theory.
So another question, how does, looking at the recipes that you can make, say, in the blacksmithing, where they got true steel armor, it says here, random enchantment, strength or intellect plus stamina. So how does that work if I'm, if I'm crafting and I'm a healing class?
They will be whatever, your main stat will go to whatever is needed. And I believe it will swap with you as you change specs.
Yes.
And then the random enhancement would be what?
Random.
Well, it's your secondaries, right? So it'd be your mastery, haste, whatever it...
I am not sure if it's random, but obviously it will be something that's at least useful for your spec, Like, I don't think you're going to get multi-strike on a healing piece,
Oh, I think you could.
Oh, yeah, you can.
Sure.
Does multi-strike work for heals?
Yeah.
Yes,
I
there's
did
a
not know that, I'm
multi-strike
sorry.
trinket.
Never mind. I was trying to make an example out of that, like it would be specific to what you're getting, but I do not know if they're completely random stats, like you could spend 15 days making a piece of armor and then it could have stupid stats, but
Yes.
I think it is, because they are going to have items that you can re-roll your stats, so...
Yep, that's exactly right.
Okay, so you might, the first time you craft that piece of gear, it might not be the end-all be-all if you're looking for your secondary stats, but you can re-roll it. Anyway, and this is part of what we've been talking about in the loot discussion. It's still going to be in your best interest to get that item level piece of gear because of the amount of strength or intellect it'll have on it. Even if you might not have optimal secondary stats, it'll still be way better than a 630 with those optimal secondary stats. But anyway, so yeah, I would honestly, I would look into making one of your professions and one of your buildings the craft that you plan on making 3 items from. That I can't think of any reason how there would be a better way than that, in my opinion. Now, what you make for your second craft, to be honest, it's really just personal preference. I'm going with tailoring for the reasons I could make a cloak, which is kind of like your bonus 4th item, but also because only tailors with the tailoring building are going to be able to crank out the 30 slot bags, which to me sounds like a pretty good moneymaker. But that's the reason for my second profession. But remember, there are absolutely no profession bonuses, so it's not weird for me to be a tailor as a male-wearing tank, or a plate-wearing tank. The second one pretty much just comes down to your personal choice.
So if like a caster, let's say a mage, wanted to maximize their professions, they might choose inscription for the staff. Does the staff count as one of the 3 craft items
yes,
as well?
Does.
Okay.
So yeah, a lot of people are talking about like alchemy, because there's always going to be a benefit to alchemy. There's no direct bonus, but you can make the items that are going to be for the top end raiders. Like the non-alchemists with just the building can only crank out the like plus 100 stuff. The true alchemists can pump out the 150. So the market for that. But we're talking about making money here. That's just everything else you can buy on the auction house. You want to get your flasks and you're not an alchemist, you would do that anyway. So it's pretty much, like I said, I would recommend you guys switch over and start leveling up a profession that is armor matched to what you're going to have as your class, and then make that your first building. When you first get to the garrison at level 90, and you're clearing ground, and your basic level 1 garrison gives you 1 small building and 1 large building, which by default starts as the barracks. Make that small building your main profession, and then as soon as you can, get some work orders into that. You know what I mean? Like right as soon as you build that building, all the buildings take an hour to make. So once you get the plans and you drop that item in there, get those work orders rolling right away. And then as you continue to level up, make sure that you look at your garrisons to make sure there are no idle buildings. But most of your time leveling up is just going to be get that first small building, get the work orders rolling for that, and then make sure that you fill it back up before it runs out. Because anytime that it's not currently active in a work order is time that you're losing on getting as much mats as possible.
And you should do this before you head out to level?
Well, you're going to be visiting your garrison several times. In fact, you actually get a garrison hearthstone, which is on a separate timer than your regular hearthstone. So you're going to be going back to your garrison quite a bit here and there to check on your follower missions, which you don't have to always go back to your garrison, but because sometimes it takes just as long to run back to an outpost and what a garrison, you may as well. So it's not like it's going to be hard to get to your garrison, and you also have a separate little button icon that you can click at any time to tell you how much time is left on a follower mission, how much time is left on work orders, which buildings are building, which buildings have active work orders, etc. You don't have to go all the way back to your garrison to track it. It's all a button click away. But if you notice that you don't have any, let's say you're a blacksmith and there's no work orders going at the blacksmith because you didn't load them up with enough ore or whatever, then you should absolutely get it and go. Now, if you are friends with a gatherer, then they can hook you up early, because the only way to get that ore, obviously, unless you're a miner too, for example, is to do it through your mine in your garrison, and you can only run through that once a day. So basically, make friends with the gatherer, pay them a little extra for their service, and get the ore or the leather scraps or the cloth, whatever, the fur shit, whatever it is that you need for your garrison's building, and get those things rolling as soon as you build, and make sure it doesn't run out. That is the number one best tip I can give you guys for optimal gearing, is that. Now, when you upgrade your garrison to level 2, which is right after you complete the main set of quests in Shadow Moon, the next step is you're going to get 1 medium building, a second small building. So what I would recommend is building a lumber mill. And the reason for the lumber mill is another thing that you can always be loaded up with resources. You go out, you actually chop, you get like your own miniature gathering profession with that. It's called woodworking or lumberjacking or whatever the fuck. And you can chop trees while you're out in the wilderness. They're very easy to see. There's a whole bunch of them. And that timber can then be converted into garrison resources. Now, garrison resources are basically like the universal currency for building things in the garrison. And you will run out. Like, you probably won't run out a whole lot on your way to level 100, but once you hit 100 and you have all these buildings that you want to move up to level 3 and shit, you will need a shit ton of resources. You get some resources from killing rare mobs once, because once in Warlords, when you kill a rare mob, you'll get the benefit of killing it right away, but then when you kill it again, you won't get anything. So it's a one-time kill for a lot of those rare mobs. And they drop resources too to help you, pad it a little bit. But you will need lumber. You need lumber for just about everything. You're going to need lumber for your follower missions. You're going to need lumber for building more buildings. So I would highly recommend that your first medium building when you first hit the garrison level 2 is a lumber mill. So then you're pretty much leveling. You've got your work orders cranked out in your first profession building. You've got your lumber mill cranking out wood as quick as you can get it. And then you're pretty much going to be clear to level to 100. Now, if you're going to be one of those people who power levels their way there in one round, then keep an eye on your war orders while you're playing, but for the most part, it takes care of itself while you're playing. Like Achu said, it's either 4 hours or 3 or whatever, but you don't have to add another work order to it for 3 to 4 hours. Since you can queue up a shit ton at a time, just load the fucker up and then go about your leveling.
How long does it take to get to level 100?
It took me about 13 hours of playtime. It's not bad.
That's not bad at all. That's better than Mist it was.
About the same.
Oh, really?
I thought so, yeah.
It took me like 3 days and...
But it's not terrible, But the big thing is that it's not all about hitting level 100 like it was in Pandaria, where get to 90, that's all it matters. Like, there are some things you want to complete, too, to get more followers. There's going to be... Like, this is one of those expansions where, especially since there's no achievement for hitting level 100 first, you really don't have any reason to rush to 100. That doesn't mean you can't log on and play for fucking 24 hours straight and be crazy hardcore and get everything done. But getting to 100 ASAP is not as important as it has been in the past, since, like I said, everything is gated around your professions and you can start those out right away. There are benefits to doing a little exploring. There's a whole bunch of followers that are kind of hidden around in little side quests. There's followers for completing major quest line. There's all sorts of things, gated through achievements and discovering things, and so it would not necessarily be a bad idea to go through a full zone, then go to a next one. Like back in the day, if you wanted to be efficient, as soon as you hit 86, you got the fuck out of Jade Forest. You didn't stay there. You got out of there and went right to the valley to get ahead of everybody. But in this particular case, it might not be a bad idea to finish things out. It just depends on, how bad the crowd is. There will be a group of people that as soon as they hit level 92 go straight for Gorgrond, so they can try and beat some of the crowd. There will be people that stay all the way in Shadow Moon right up to level 93 to finish everything out. It just depends. I can't recommend an optimal way because it all depends on where the fucking people are at, and there's really no way to predict that. I do not recommend dungeon grinding unless you are a tank and maybe a healer. If you are a tank and you want a dungeon grind, that's probably fastest way to level, but unless you have a pre-made group, I wouldn't do it. Because it's one thing when you're traveling with 4 people who have 580 item level from, our guild or whatever. It's another thing when you queue up and get Joe Fuckface, who's level 450, because he's a fresh 90, pre-purchased whatever, and he has nothing and he's an idiot. So I would not recommend dungeon grinding to get your levels, unless it's completely unplayable or whatever. But getting back to the whole point of garrisons, when you hit 100... you're going to be able to upgrade your garrison to level 3. Now, the garrison's now max level. You can have a total of 2 large buildings, 2 medium buildings, and 3 small buildings. What you choose, in my opinion, is there are kind of optimal ways to get gear, but there's not exactly one correct, definite way. There are some buildings which, in terms of gearing out, are useless. The Gladiator Sanctum, for example, that is purely a fun PvP thing. It is not for gear. The stables... that is not for gear. That is for extra mounts. The Gnomish Gearworks or whatever, that is not for gear at all. That is for like extra fun PvP shit for what it looks like. So if you build one of those buildings, you're not doing yourself any favor to get gear. The barn is a medium building, and it looks to be a very important building. What it is you can trap beasts and get savage blood. And the reason why that's important is savage blood is an ingredient in every single crafting recipe. Everything that matters, all the upgraded shit, you're going to need savage blood. But the one thing to note is that savage blood is BOE. So you don't have to have a barn to get savage blood. But you need to be careful. You need to consider the fact that if you don't have your own way of getting savage blood, you're going to be at the mercy of the auction house prices. I can promise you that will be an extremely high on-demand item. It will sell high. There will be limited quantities. The Uber guilds are going to buy up as much as they can to give out to their raiders. It will not necessarily be an unlimited quantity like, ore or whatever. So that's something to consider. The guild should probably attempt to have as many barns as possible. For trapping your beasts, because there is a limited amount. That's also gated. There's a limited amount of beasts you can trap per day to get blood. You can't just do it all day and get unlimited blood. So that's a component in crafting recipes. We will need a lot of savage blood. If you want to build a barn, it will certainly be helpful, not just for yourself, but if you have some left over to help out with others. Another building for your medium, which is good to consider, is the inn. But it might not necessarily be worth considering right out of the gate. It will give you a chance to recruit one new follower every week. And that follower will have random stats, but you can put on there, like, you're looking for this particular type of stat. And, so that might be good for the long run, but it might not necessarily be good to build one right away. I think that's all the medium buildings. The large buildings, it's pretty much a given that the best large buildings to buy if you are interested in doing follower missions is going to be the barracks and the Dwarven bunker, I think it's called. The Dwarven bunker will allow you to get extra upgrades for your followers to get them to level quicker, to get to epic faster, to get them item level higher. The stronger your followers, the better chance you'll have of unlocking missions and completing those missions successfully. And those follower missions will give you gear one tier higher than what you're rating. So if we're rating heroic, it will give you a chance to get a piece of mythic gear. If we're rating mythic and blackrot, then it'll give you a chance to get, in high maul, it'll give you a chance to get a piece of mythic and blackrot. It will give you good gear. But the reward that you get is random, so it's not like you can just pick and choose. But I mean, it's a free epic, and if the whole guild is doing that, think about how much extra gear you're going to get from that. But that is from follower missions, and the war mill will give your followers more upgrades. You also can, I think, do 5 more followers, or is that the barracks I'm thinking of?
Barracks does 5 more.
That's the reason to keep the barracks around. Yeah, the barracks for 5 extra followers, and the war mill to get more upgrades for them. Yep. Now, to pair with the war mill, you want to spend one of your small buildings. I recommend this for anybody. One of your small buildings should be a salvage yard. A salvage yard is basically every time your followers complete a mission, you get extra salvage with it, which will then give them upgrades. So the combination of the war mill and the salvage yard is the best way to get your followers geared up as quick as possible. And the faster you get those guys geared up, the more chance you'll have at obtaining and succeeding on those missions which award raid level gear. Now, I'm not sure how often you can do those missions. I've heard once a week. But, okay, but I mean, it's free fucking gear, people. I mean, that's the end-all, be-all of everything, It's free gear once a week if you complete those. So that leaves pretty much your last small building. If you want to be optimal, in my opinion, you will want a profession associated with your armor to make 3 pieces, and the building associated with that. You will want a salvage yard, and then your third small building can be whatever you want. It can match it up to your second profession. You could build a storehouse. A storehouse will allow you to have more work orders queued up at a time, which, if you're playing every day, it's not going to be that big of a deal. It's just going to be, you could go away from it longer and have more work orders queued. Not a huge deal breaker, but it does give you bank access, and eventually you can get guild bank access, void storage, whatever. Third one is pretty much whatever. Like, you can make it Most people are going to make their third building their second profession building, just so they can buy, they can create more shit for that profession quicker. But one of your small buildings, no matter what, for anybody in my opinion, should be a salvage yard. And then one should be your main profession, and then the second one could be, or the third one could be storehouse or second profession. That's your smalls. For your mediums, lumber mill first. You may be able to demolish that lumber mill later, but again, that's something that I don't know yet, because it does cost lumber. It does cost garrison resources to send your followers out on missions, and since you're building your garrison around that, you might need a steady supply of lumber to be able to keep sending them on missions. But you also need lumber to build these fucking buildings up to level 2 and level 3. You need a lot of it. So highly recommend lumber mill initially. You may choose to demolish it later once you have enough resources for whatever you need. Don't know for sure yet, but definitely initially. And then your second medium building, I would recommend, until you have a better plan, I would recommend the barn. You can't go wrong with the barn, no matter what. It will be a good building to have to get Savage Bloods. Everybody's going to need them. Even if we have so many you can't even count, somebody's going to fucking buy them. The rest of those things are just purely for extras, except for the inn, which gets you that one follower per week. Now this is kind of really advanced, but a lot of people were even talking about the fact that if you have an inn constructed right before the reset every week, you will get your weekly follower when the reset happens, and then you can demolish the inn and build a barn that same day, and then just tear down the barn right one day before reset, build the inn. You know what I mean? Like, you can do it that way. I don't know enough about that to recommend pumping all those resources and gold into that. So I'm just going to be smart and safe and cover my own ass and tell you just build a barn. Then for your 2 large buildings, you're going to get the barracks built initially. I would highly recommend keeping the barracks, and I would highly recommend adding a war mill. Not a war mill, dwarven bunker. That is the best way to get yourself raid gear, as much of it as possible. Using that method, as long as you have your work orders queued at all times, you build those buildings, and your garrison is always active. As long as you have things queued, you are doing everything you can to get gear from your garrison. Now let's talk about other ways to get gear. You should absolutely run a challenge mode random every day. The daily quest for the challenge mode. Run that shit every day. So maybe that might be one tiny advantage to hitting level 100 ASAP, is to be able to gear out and run those. I believe they're going to be tuned for item level 630, which is full heroic gear. Every time you complete a challenge mode daily, you have a chance to get a 640 item, which is the equivalent of LFR. So if you have the means to do that, please do it. And no, I'm not going to do 80,000 challenge modes for this entire fucking guild, because I apparently am the only person that likes to do them. So no, you guys are going to have to start getting in the habit of forming challenge groups and going. Think of it like when Heroic Scenarios first came out and you actually had to find people to get it. Well, you need to complete them and do it. You don't need to get a gold on them. You just need to complete them. So yes, you don't necessarily have to have the optimal group with the optimal strats. Yes, you can take your time through them, but you need to make sure that they're done. And let me tell you, I didn't start out getting gold the first fucking time I went in there. First, we were just trying to beat the damn shit. Then we were trying to go quick enough without wiping enough to actually get bronze. It wasn't until hundreds of runs that we started able to consistently do gold. So you should not make it your goal to get in there and get gold every single time. Just get in there, learn how to complete it, get better at it every time, and get that piece of gear every day. That's your 640.
Wait. Did you just say you like to do challenge mods?
No, I was kind of like, holy shit.
Well, I wanted to make that clear, and I'm going to make it clear again when 6.0 starts. I have had way too many people ask me, will you do challenge modes with me? And I'm overloaded. I am not the only dude that can do it. I don't mind helping here and there, but I want people to get in the habit of learning how to do it on their own, and maybe utilizing more than just one tank in this skill. You know, Wreath, I'm sure, can help. Pandax, I'm sure, can help. You know,
Well,
other healers.
Yeah, every hybrid should be thinking about a tank off spec.
Absolutely. So, anyway, challenge modes, do them daily. Do the random, the daily whatever for it, and you'll have a chance to get a 640 from there. So that's a great way to pick up some gear. The Molten Core, which will be out right when the expansion starts, that gives you a 640 helmet. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to complete that pretty much round one with a bunch of fucking idiots. Get the helmet. The legendary ring that you can start questing for as early as 98 is like a 650, I think, or whatever. It's a ring, so everybody should have that by the time we're ready. I'm trying to think if I missed anything at all.
Weapons?
Apex crystals. I forgot about that. Apex's crystals are like the universal valor currency shit. There's no more valor points, no more justice points, etc. You can get Apex's crystals from daily quests, which there's not that many of. I think there's like one out of your garrison and maybe a couple around the world, but there's not a huge shift on dailies. But there's that, and then there is the fact that sometimes they'll drop in the world, but the Apex's crystals, depending on how many you spend, can get you gear up to level 655. It's not going to be like, oh, I'll just grind out 20,000 crystals and get a piece of gear a day. It's not going to be that easy, but it is another source of getting gear. You can also get Apex's crystals from your garrison, from level 3 buildings. Your work orders, every time they complete, have a chance to have crystals in them as well, which is another reason why you want to get those buildings leveled up. So, between having your garrisons always stocked on work orders that are going, building the correct buildings, running a challenge mode every day if you're able to, and then obviously the main push that most people are going to be doing when they first hit level 100 is grinding out the heroic dungeons, of which you have to complete silver proving grounds, which if you can't complete silver proving grounds, then just eat your own head off because you're an idiot. You have to complete that first before you can queue. But then it's mostly going to be people just grinding out to get those item level 630 things and then replacing the 630s with whatever they have available, with all the different methods I mentioned before. So, I know that was a lot to take in. Does anybody have questions about anything I just said?
I didn't hear anything about my corn dog.
Really, Bubba?
I was a little upset.
Okay, no questions means everybody gets it? Is that a good thing? Kind of worried. I did mention at the meeting that there is going to be extra incentives other than, yes, you are a responsible and good raider trying to get as much gear as possible. We are going to have a little friendly eye-level competition, which the winner will get some gold out of the guild bank. You know, I'm not a cheap ass, but I'm not going to give you like 100K or some shit, but
I think as well, like we're still kind of getting it figured out and working out the details of it, but I would say that everyone in the guild right now should work off of the premise that there is also going to be an EPGP incentive to getting as much gear of your own crafted as you can. Like, we haven't got final rules on it yet, but definitely there will be, I expect there will be advantage.
Of course, you won't need as much raid gear then.
Exactly.
I have a question. I've been trying to find engineering. Is engineering basically going to be useless next expansion?
I'm leaning towards yes, because most of the things that you can make with it are all usable by non-engineers. So aside from the fact that you can craft a gun, the helmet, which can be upgraded, you could eventually upgrade your helmet to higher than 640, so it could be better than Molten Core helmet. But the fact that most of the little fun toys have been nerfed straight into oblivion, like the rocket boots barely propel you anywhere, and the fact that anybody can use those gears, those gizmos, it doesn't look good for engineering. I'm just going to tell you that right now.
I have a dumb question, or a possibly dumb question.
Okay.
Are the garrisons account-wide, or do you have like your own individual one for each character?
They are not account-wide, but what you need to do to unlock blueprints, if they are achievement-based, that is account-wide. There are a lot of blueprints. Before you can even build a building, you need a blueprint for it. And to obtain the blueprints, you have to do certain things. Some of those things revolve around achievements, which will add up on multiple characters, like... Obviously, if you just have your own mine that you're mining out of, it's going to take a while for you to do that, but if you do that on several characters, you could reach that quicker. So once you have that unlocked, obviously you can buy that blueprint on any character. but you cannot have those buildings already built. The blueprints themselves, buying the blueprints themselves, are not account-wide. You have to rebuy the blueprints on whatever characters you are making stuff on. So for that reason, I would highly recommend researching before you spend the money. Because if you're going to be like me and you're going to have several fucking alts with a ton of garrisons rolling for maximum amount of income, you don't want to have to spend half of what you're going to make originally on buying those expensive blueprints. They're like 1,000 gold a pop. They're not cheap, and to build the buildings cost 1,000 gold. It's not cheap to do this, so you probably want to actually do your homework on it. But yeah, hope that answers the question.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Would it be just better? Would it just be better just to go ahead and like whatever crafting profession you get, say leatherworking, to go ahead and just get skinning at the beginning before switching over to another crafting just to make it faster?
It will not make it faster, though. It will only... You can't, no matter what you do, no matter how much leather you have sitting in your backpack, you cannot increase the speed of which you create that the items that are made from leather, for example. Because your garrison can only hold so many. The work orders only work at, it's like 5 leather every 4 hours or whatever. That's one work order, is like 5 leather, for example. So would it be easier to do that? Sure. Could you do that? Absolutely. There's no penalty whatsoever to do that. A lot of people are thinking of making their second profession a gathering profession because why the fuck not? You know, like it'll be everybody's going to be needing those resources. The extra ones you have left over can be sold. There's no reason not to. I mean, but that's the thing. Your professions, other than your main armor profession, which I highly recommend you guys at least have that. Other than that, your second profession can be whatever the hell you want.
Yeah,
You know?
but as far as like leatherworking goes, you're still going to need the leathers to craft the stuff. So
correct. Yeah.
You have to think about that.
You're going to need to either play the auction house, use an alt, or skin. So, like you will get as you level up, you'll get a mine which goes in your garrison, and you'll get an herb garden and a fishing thing. But you don't get a tannery, you know, or that's the leatherworking building. You don't get a building which gives you leather. Okay? No matter what, at the end of the day, you still have to get that leather somehow. So if you are a leather worker, it would not necessarily be a bad idea to be a skinner.
Trading post could kind of function in that way as well. I don't know if it's efficient.
Well, the only problem with the trading post is that I mean, down the road for sure, yeah, once you've gotten your followers going and all that shit, for sure. But the trading post will let you trade garrison resources for particular materials. So until you get the ability to buy a trading post, you're going to have to get your own leather. And that might, I don't know the values, so it's possible you might be using too many of your garrison resources just to get leather, you know? So, Obviously, a gold advantage is necessary here. If you guys don't have a lot to do before the expansion, I highly recommend you just make gold. Just find a way to make gold reliably and do it, because gold is becoming the universal currency for pretty much everything. The more gold you have, the more you'll be able to not have to worry about when you're first getting started in terms of blueprint plans and building costs. And gold. Just get gold.
What do you foresee being a good starting amount with your gold?
I'm personally aiming for 100,000, and that should be more than enough to get things going. You don't need 100,000 for sure. I'm just one of those people that is lazy as fuck and buys everything because I hate people and I hate life. But I would say that if you had 20,000 gold, you'd be in good shape. With 20,000 gold, you should be able to afford the blueprints, the garrison plans, etc. They're also increasing the amount of gold that you make from doing things in the expansion to compensate for the fact that they are requiring a lot more gold to do things. But if you don't have 20,000 gold, I recommend getting it. You got plenty of time. I know it's no fun making gold. I know the auction house is incredibly unpredictable right now. But I would recommend finding a way to make some gold.
There is a very easy farm place in Vale where you can make almost 1,500 every, 20 minutes as well.
Alright. Another thing you could do if you're looking for some gold is to power level your friendly guild leader's alt and skin all of those items, all the leather off the turtles that we'll be killing together. Just saying. Anyway, does anybody else have any other questions at all about garrisons, about how they can gear up? I want to make sure that everybody's informed with the best ways to do that. There's all sorts of posts about it. You don't need to have a beta account to learn. You know, it's easier if you have beta to learn about it yourself directly, but there's enough information being brought out of beta now from people who have played that you should be able to form up a plan of your own ahead of time.
There was a really good one on MMO Champion, and I think somebody linked it on the forums, but it was a really good comprehensive guide.
Okay, good. Any questions?
It's a real question this time. Where can I upload this sound file to? Because I recorded this whole thing. Anyone know of a place where I can upload it to?
A file that size? I don't know.
That would be good for somebody like me that just showed up late as well.
I know Vonder wanted to hear it too. I don't know, Bubba. I would just Google search it. Alright, last chance before I peace out. Any other questions at all about the process? Okay, Bubba, you can go ahead and stop recording.